Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by a remarkable guest, Xiaodi Hou, who is founder and CEO at Bot Auto. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Barry. Thanks for having me.
To those who don't know you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, please?
Sure. I'm a veteran in the autonomous driving field. Been working in this industry for about 10 years. So time flies really fast, right? Bot Auto is actually my third startup company doing level 4 autonomous driving. We've been having the team for a little bit more than 1.5 years, and we're located in Houston, Texas, focusing on the 18-wheelers, like the heavy-duty trucks in the US. Prior to this, Bot Auto, my last company was Too Simple. It was a NASDAQ-listed company, and I worked there for a little bit more than 7 years, and I left. I started Bot Auto. This time, I believe the autonomous driving is on the cusp of commercializing.
Have you always been interested in transportation, like these big trucks, or is it something that you just happened to come across when you were on your journey?
The beginning of this autonomous trucking industry interests comes from after the failure of my first startup, where I was doing online advertising, because I see the value of neural networks and the convolutional neural networks and deep learning. Well, the year of 2014, I started my first startup, and 1 year later, I felt that online advertising may not be the best use case for deep learning. So I wanted to get something big and like a moonshot project. So that's how I started autonomous trucking. The more I do it, the more I like it. The more I feel that this is going to be the future, the immediate future of how you can apply the very amazing AI technology to the reality.
This is now your third company, right, that you started. Do you have like entrepreneurs in your family? Where does the inspiration just to get out there and create your own business come from?
Well, none of my parents is business oriented. They are all engineers. And I think I'm also influenced heavily by them of becoming an engineer. And what is the core of an engineer? That is to create some values. Because I never believed in zero-sum game. I always believe in creating extra values through technology and engineering. I think that's the influence that I get since my childhood from my parents. And all the way to the end is like, how do you engineer a product to how do you engineer a company so that the company is a product for people to create values?
So just tell us what inspired you to start Bot Auto, especially after your experiences at Too Simple.
Yes. Well, even though my journey in Too Simple is not that smooth, but there are certain things that I have seen through this 7-year exploration. That is, autonomous trucking is a real deal. It creates value, and there is nothing prevents this industry from thriving, except for the company itself.
What has been your biggest learn from Too Simple, or even after your first company? Because you mentioned that there was a mistake with your first company, and how are you applying that differently at Bot Auto?
Right. I think it's always about expanding the horizon. Since I'm in this Bright Founder talk, I wanted to talk more about the founder mentality and experience and the lessons I've learned through that angle. So I'm going to talk less about technology. But the key thing is technology is not that important. A lot of times people, especially tech founders like me, were thinking, I have the best technology, or at least we should all have the confidence that we have the best technology that is out there. And oversimplifying the business problem by saying that technology can solve every problem. Technology can solve the problem to some extent, but in the end, we always face a non-technological problem. For example, how do you define your product? How do you define your business? How do you make money? These questions are actually very central to the business. But as a tech founder, the common mistake that many people, including me, has made is that we become agnostic about certain areas of the business. Like if someone told me, you need to do your next PR campaign in this exact way so that you can raise the money and so you can go to the next step. But is that exact way of doing the next round of PR campaign be helpful for the product? Is that a true mission statement? of our product or of our technology. In many situations, it's not. And if you're getting the sense that, I'm only a technology guy, I don't know anything on this area, I don't know anything on that area, you just let go the strategization process to other people. And in the end, different pieces of the company don't add up together. And that's when the company get destabilized and crumbled in the end. So that's a hard lesson learned in a hard way. So this time, I consider myself not only owning the technology roadmap, but also owning the roadmap for the overall development of the company. I think that should be a lesson learned, shared by a lot of tech founders.
So a lot of tech founders have to rely on other people to help them with the growth of the company and onboarding like new people to develop that company. Some tech founders have difficulty with letting go, like maybe they want to be overseeing everything. Is that something that you've ever had a problem with, or are you quite happy to diversify and offload some of the responsibilities to other people?
I think this is really like the two extreme of the spectrum. On one hand, you just let go everything that is outside the tech domain. On the other hand, you believe or someone believe that they can own everything. But I think there has to be the middle ground. On the strategical level, I'm a very strong believer that you cannot do the business in a business agnostic way, meaning that I don't know anything about insurance, so I'll let someone to do the insurance for me. But is there an insurance policy? Because we're doing trucking, so we need to be thinking about insurance. But insurance is such a particular domain that normally a tech founder wouldn't know anything about insurance. But I have to, first of all, learn insurance in a very humble way. And second is that I need to answer always the question that is the strategy of insurance compatible with every other parts of the strategy? And in many situations, it's not. And finally, if you know everything and you see the compatibility of the overall strategy on the top level, then you can let go and let some other people to do the execution. But there must be one single owner of the strategy of the company.
So we've talked a little bit about lessons learned and inspiration. So let's move on a little bit about your business model. So can you just explain a bit about Bot Auto's like transportation as a service model? Because not everyone will be familiar with that.
Right. I think the autonomous driving industry, especially for the things that I'm super familiar with, the autonomous trucking industry, we're having a problem. Like the whole venture capital world doesn't like autonomous trucking. At least that's according to my fundraising experiences. Why? Because the whole industry has been keep missing their goals. Like money being flown in, no deliverables from the commercial perspective. Like we're still making very, very slow progress and people are running out of their patience. Why? Because the product is not clearly defined. People are imagining a product of, here is a black box. The black box can drive the truck by itself. Then we can sell it theoretically. But people forget to mention about other costs associated with this utopian black boxy product. There is the operation cost. Who's going to be taking charge of cleaning the sensors? Just as simple as sensor cleaning. That's a problem. And who also, more deeply, people are also forgetting about who's going to sell this black box. You just can't assume, this is a huge assumption, and it's wrong, that people assume that this black box can be sold to every trucking company. And in reality, the customer acquisition cost is very often prohibitively high. Like even thinking about SaaS, if you're building a software, how can you make sure that everyone uses your software? That's a big assumption, probably the biggest. In the autonomous driving field, this is also true. The customer acquisition cost and the operating cost. These are the hidden costs that nobody talks about. So that's why you see the commercialization is way behind what people has been promised, and way behind what the VCs has been expected. And I wanted to make a change. And the result of that change is we wanted to be a transportation as a service company where we are a trucking company. We operate the trucks. What we offer to our customers is not a black box, but just a truck that can haul loads, and we sell capacities to our customers.
So you've touched on there, like what you're offering to your customers as a service. So if we look at the business model, how does Bot Auto's business model differ from, let's say, your competitors?
Well, as far as I know, everyone else in 18-wheeler business in the US, they're not talking about selling the services. They're talking about selling the truck or selling the software to someone else. But we are focusing on the operation, so we take the customer acquisition cost. We also take the operating cost. And in fact, Bot Auto is founded with a very clear goal that we wanted to organize this company in such a way that the organization is optimized for minimizing the operating cost of this technology. We are very different from the others. Others may build the technology as their like a starting mission, but our mission is to minimizing the operating cost. If we can successfully do that, we are commercializing this technology. If we can't, then I don't really see any other way or any other person can commercializing the technology without solving the very heavy operation problem.
Do you ever see your competitors and look at them and see something that gives you innovation to improve it? Or are you so far ahead of the competition that you don't need to get inspiration or innovation from them?
Yeah, it may sound so arrogant about admitting the latter, but to tell you the truth, I don't really see competition in this domain. We are facing the common problem that the autonomous driving industry, especially autonomous trucking, is losing credibilities from the world. And we wanted to rebuild this credibility by offering in a very transparent way to the world on how much operation cost there is and how are we going to be making money by ourselves first. And maybe later down the road, we can offer the technology to others so that they also can make money. But we wanted to build the credibility, and I don't really see this building credibility for the industry as anywhere competitive to other players in the autonomous driving field.
So you mentioned the development of technology there. So it's a good time to jump in on that now because it's my favorite part of the podcast. So could you tell us like what key technological innovations that Bot Auto is bringing to the autonomous trucking industry? I mean, you have touched on it briefly there.
The company is founded in late July of 2023. During that time, ChatGPT has already proven to be wildly successful. And the entire deep learning academic world has been rethinking about a newer paradigm for developing anything related to deep learning or neural networks. I see two trends. One is that previously segregated smaller neural networks has been aggregated into one gigantic neural network. They often call it foundation model. So one neural network can be very versatile, taking all different tasks. For example, detection of an object versus prediction of the trajectory. They're actually in one neural network. And the understanding of camera data, pixels, and the LiDAR data, which is point cloud, is also aggregated in one neural network. So this is, in the jargon, it's called a multimodality and multitasking. So those are the trends that I see from the neural networks. Because we are a latecomer, we can enjoy all of the new technologies without any technical or managerial debts. We like that. And another trend where we see, this is also coming from the large language models where prevalent pre-training neural networks, where pre-training techniques has been helping the ever-growing parameters of the neural network. You have billions of parameters, right? Previously, if you rely on all human annotation of all of these neural networks, the annotation cost is becoming an astronomical number. You can't afford that number. But over time, people have learned that, you know what, we can just scrape all the internet and do the learning by itself without extra human annotation because the data is there. We take the same spirit. We take the pre-training techniques that we just let the vehicle go out and do some data collection. No annotation or minimal annotation, the system can learn by itself. Those are the two pillars of our new innovations in terms of technology.
So we know the technology is there. We know you have the capability. But another thing that comes up with technology is the issue of safety. So how does Bot Auto ensure that the safety and reliability of its autonomous trucks is reliable?
Oh, definitely. That's a very big topic. So that's why we started Bot Auto by thinking about redundancy design. So our truck has redundant steering, redundant braking, no redundant engine for obvious reasons, but redundant battery and redundant computing and redundant sensors. So everything that we built, we start on day one of Bot Auto as a redundant system. And of course, we're validating and testing this redundant system. And I would say that one more reason for us to believing in autonomous driving to be becoming a reality these days is because the entire automotive industry has been inspired heavily by the EV revolution. So a lot of the hardwares are getting much more reliable because in EV, a lot of things are electronically controlled rather than mechanically controlled, right? And the redundancy and reliability of these electronic controlled devices are getting a huge boost compared to the last generation of the mechanically controlled units. So we're actually taking the benefit of the upgrade of the entire ecosystem. And we're taking all of these things together. And then now without us doing anything on the hardware side, for obvious reasons, we don't do hardware, we already see a dramatic improvement in terms of the redundancy and reliability of our components. And we just make use of it, and we wanted to build the entire system that is redundant and reliable.
So another thing that I'm really excited about is something that I read recently about your driver out pilot. So can you just tell me a little bit, because it's something that you recently launched in 2025. Could you just explain its importance for Bot Auto?
I think this is really, to us, a litmus test. As I said, we focus a lot on the operation. And my past experience told me that whenever you're getting into this driver out era, you started to have a full redundant system, and you believe the full redundant system is ready to go. But every time when you do this redundant and driver out launch, it's more like a rocket launch. So thinking about this driver out as in the initial phase as a rocket launch. And before every rocket launch, you have a very long checklist to check to make sure that everything is working just as expected and it's working normally. But this type of rocket launch is not suitable for commercial operation. When you launch a rocket, you very seldomly calculate the ticket price, but you do a lot when you book an air flight, right? So the airplane launch is very different from the rocket launch. Why? Because airplane has streamlined everything, and everything is started to consider from a commercialization and operation perspective. That's why we wanted to make a transformation from the initial rocket launch to airplane takeoff. And the very first step is that we need to launch the rocket frequently enough so that we can learn the lesson from it. And then after that, we optimize our operation procedures to make it complete the shift from a rocket launch to airplane takeoff.
So you mentioned earlier in this podcast about the tech trends coming forward. So the AV trucking industry seems to be on the cusp of making like a major step forward right now. In your opinion, why do you think this is happening?
It's really an accumulation of a lot of things. The deep neural network is getting stronger and stronger. You can use much less people to achieve something amazing that you can't imagine before. That's one. And the second is that the hardware, as I said, is also getting more and more reliable. Those are the things that just can't be stopped by the success or the failure of one company. Those are the very general trends. And another very general trend is that the driver shortage is always there, and it's actually continuing. It's aggravating, right? So these factors all put in together, you can see there's a natural tendency for any company to be successful if they're placed in this position and they work really hard.
What do you think are the biggest hurdles that you face in your company in the autonomous trucking sector?
As I said earlier, I think the biggest hurdle is all coming from the credibility of the whole industry. We wanted to make sure that we deliver, and we also wanted to make sure that our product makes business sense. As long as we can give a satisfactory answer to the world, I think we'll resolve that hurdle. The venture capital funds will start to look at autonomous driving again. Right now, it's very hard. Right. Yes, we know that the entire industry is facing the same problem.
What impact do you see Bot Auto having on the trucking industry in the future?
I would only see from the positive side, we wanted to show that we can do autonomous driving. We can make money in every mile of every truck that we're driving. To be very honest, I don't really see the impact, even in the midterm, even with a very optimistic estimate of our growth projection. As I said, in my fundraising deck, even for a very optimistic projection, we don't really see this autonomous trucking occupying a major portion of the U.S. transportation system. Even by 2033, we're still a tiny portion of that.
Wow.
So this is how large the market is. So a lot of people were just like worrying, oh, you're going to take my job immediately. That's not going to happen. Even with my most optimistic estimate, it's not going to happen in the near term.
So we talked about lots of things like technology, safety, kind of like your market vision. Let's talk a bit about the team and the culture. So Bot Auto is fostering a collaborative and open culture. We know this, but why and how is it important for you and just technology and product development in general?
I think there are two types of cultures that you can think of. One is the leading versus the other is managing. We chose the exact way of how do we lead the team rather than managing anyone. Because For managing, it's more tuned for a larger organization where you wanted to have a dedicated or a controllable scale or controllable pace to scale. But for leading, we're a kind of a orderly, chaotic, small organization where there's a lot of synergy between people. Right now, especially when the new technology has been popping out literally every day, we wanted to maintain this level of orderly, chaotic, synergetic atmosphere in the company. So leadership is more important than management. We wanted to make sure that every member of the company, they can initiate new projects, they can find a good synergy with other people because we have about 40 to 50 engineers. They can easily form new projects, do new experiments, and they can innovate. That's very important, especially now.
So I hope you don't mind me saying, but compared to your competitors, you do have a rather small team, generally speaking. So how do you achieve such rapid, technical progress in such an environment?
I think several reasons. One, even though this is a small team, we are very, very experienced. More than half of the team have been fought with me, even for the last driver out, or which is interestingly the only driver out that has been delivered in the U.S. public highway back in 2021 in TuSimple. So I would say the team is super experienced. We know what problem we're facing, and we're all equipped with the best technologies that are out there, and we're learning still. That creates a first pillar, and the second is that I think now is you can see the tendency. A lot of the successful teams, especially in the era of AI, are not very large. We rely more on the heavier and heavier on the computing and on the GPUs and AI itself to build the things. We are building the pipeline, and the AI is doing things by itself. So this trend is also another thing I have observed, that you don't need to be having a huge team to be successful.
So having been through 3 companies and now on your 3rd company, could you give some advice to other Bright founders? What's worked well, what hasn't, and what you would suggest other people do going in the future?
I think logically optimistic is what I've felt to be super helpful to me and to others, meaning that you always have to be having an open-minded mentality where you listen to other people to challenge your logic. In fact, everyone can knock at my door and challenge me about our company mission and the company plan, saying, Xiaodi, I think we have a illogical point here or there. We need to listen to everyone about every possible scenario, and even about some like a small probability scenario. We have to be very open to learn about the logics and try to make sure that our final roadmap is extremely logically defensible. But apart from that, being optimistic is also very important. I'll give you one example. The first moment when I decided to do autonomous driving, I have a lot of frictions inside the team. People are saying like, look, Xiaodi, we're only having a GPU that can run object detection at 2 frames per second. How can you do driver out? How can you make sure that this vehicle can drive by itself in the future? I give him this. This is the part of optimism. The optimistic view from me is like, look, Jensen Huang never disappointed me as a gamer. I'm a gamer, by the way. So we know the crazy progress of the GPU computing power every year. That's one. And also, we are all reading academic papers. We know that there's new innovation, new algorithms, new inspirations coming out to the academic world, every week. So we have reasons to believe that this trend will not stop here. I cannot tell you 5 years from now on if it's 50x, 200x, or 20x of the speed of the detection rate. But I can tell you 20x is already being conservative. So that's where my optimism comes in. You have to have a logical part, and for things that you do not know, you have to always have an optimistic view of the world, that there will be some miracle happen in your future pursuit that will facilitate you. You don't know exactly what kind of miracle will happen, but there will be some miracle that happens. However, even without any miracles, your logical foundation, your logical roadmap, will that lead to you to a modestly successful business? As long as you're safety controlled by the logical part, and you're shooting for a very optimistic goal, you won't be in a bad shape.
Lovely. Xiaodi, thank you so much again for talking with us today. But unfortunately, we have come toward the end, but it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much, Barry, for having me here.
That was Xiaodi Hou, founder and CEO at Bot Auto.